What is up, everyone? Welcome to TCR Live, one of the most depressing TCR Lives I think we've ever had to do. We all know what this game was like. We know what it went, how it went down. I think, it is not hyperbole to say one of the worst losses in Cardinals history. For some folks who are maybe younger than me, maybe the worst one they remember. I don't know if it's the worst. There was a Seattle drumming that was pretty bad, but this is not good. So we're gonna commiserate. We're gonna have group therapy. We're gonna air our grievances. It's like Festivus, the airing of grievances, Cardinals Festivus. But I am joined by my good friend Kyler and a first-time guest, I think, on TCR. I've been on the Cardinalytics podcast, but we're also joined by Corey. So, Corey, you're our first-time guest here. Why don't you introduce yourself to the folks in the chat?
Yeah, appreciate y'all. How's everybody going? Name's Corey. You can follow me on Twitter, Corey_cards. You probably see me on the timeline ranting about something going on with the Cardinals. So also 1/3 of the Cardinalytics podcast. Shout out my co-hosts, Shad and Kyler Murray Wins. Those two guys are also on Twitter too. So do Cardinalytics every week and here excited to hop on here with Joe and Kyler and talk some Cardinals football. Obviously not a great week to talk about it, but glad to be talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we appreciate you jumping on with us. And of course, Mr. Kyler Bird, we were talking and we've been texting. Boy, how are you, my friend?
Not great. I do think in my lifetime as a fan, this is the most embarrassed I've been. We've had some really bad losses, but those usually came in years where we were supposed to be bad. And, as a fan, you weather those seasons where you're supposed to be bad. And this year was, according to us, according to the staff, the organization, even the national media, this was supposed to be a different year.
Yeah.
And instead, we are 5 weeks in and we're the laughing stock of the National Football League again. And in that sense, it's not the worst loss of our lives because these past 3 losses have been less than a touchdown worth of points. But we've lost in a historic way, the only team to ever lose 3 back-to-back games on a final, second score. And just insanely embarrassing to host what is supposed to be the worst team in the league at home in a year that you were supposed to make it in a rebuild that was touted all along as a 3-year deal, and you lose to the Tennessee Titans of all people. It's not feeling great. How are you, Joe?
I'm okay. I mean, I've been, I'm old enough that I remember when the Cardinals moved to Arizona. I've dealt with this futility for a long time. I've been through lots of, I'd say, ups and downs, but mostly downs as a Cardinals fan. But this one hurts. This sucks. This is definitely since I've been doing TCR, this is the most painful, frustrating loss to talk about. I'm okay because I do have this larger picture of fandom that it is, winning is nice, but what fandom is really about is the experiences and having a connection to a team that, for me, as someone who was born in Arizona, represents my home, that allows me to meet cool people like you guys. There's a whole lot to fandom and being a fan of a team, and enjoyment and joy that comes from that. But then there are moments like these. So I'm okay, but it's rough. So yeah. And, but what's really helping is we've got support from our friendly neighborhood Rams fan, Zach Payotime, here to support. How are the Cards fans? If I didn't know Zach, because I've had him on here multiple times, I've been on with him, I've had conversations. Zach is a genuinely good guy. Yeah. And if I didn't know him better, I'd think he was rubbing it in. But I know Zach, and he's not rubbing it in. He is sincere. He really is here to support us, right? So I appreciate you, Zach. Payotime is a good dude, even though he's a Rams fan. But I've said this before. God made him a Rams fan because otherwise he'd be perfect, right? So God needed to bring him down a peg, so he made him a Rams fan. And yeah, you are welcome. Zach, definitely appreciate you. We've got Silver Wolf. Let's go. Always here, the hype man. He's like the chat hype man. He's here, ready to go, even if the Cardinals weren't ready to go. We got Classy Nasty. What's up, Professor? Appreciate you. Longtime person in this space hanging out with us. Thank you for hanging out. Rambo, appreciate you hanging out with us. Today we gather for community sadness acknowledgement. Yes, 100%. So, yeah, it ain't great, right? So we're going to talk about some of the things that went wrong. We're going to talk about the future. We're going to talk. This is going, I think, the most existential episode we've had. Like, because we're going to talk about the games a bit, but it's much more what's going on with this regime, this coaching staff, this quarterback, this franchise. This, like, we're in week freaking 5, and we're having to think about what next. That ain't great, right? So this is going to be kind of an exercise in self-flagellation and existentialism, but we're going to get there. A couple more comments real quick, and then we'll kind of get going. Reyes fan, who is the Cardinals as his second team, no coach can thrive under an owner that tells them what plays to call half the time. I'll tell you, Michael Bidwell ain't. I mean, he's a problem culturally. I don't know that he tells him what plays to call. But I don't know about that. But he has, like, the stuff he's done internally in terms of morale and culture. You know, the only way you can have any success with an owner that's like that is if you have a GM that serves as a buffer and runs interference. I do like Monty. I know a lot of people are down on him right now with everything. I still am on board with Monty. Monty and being that buffer might be our only chance. But yeah, it makes it really tough, right? We got Mikey, Desert Cars, thanks for being here. Honestly, this team needs to look at themselves in the mirror, starting with the OC, who really sucks. He's not only holding this offense back, he's holding this team back. I mean, listen, for sure, right? Question: any chance Gannon is fired before the trade deadline? His seat is hot. Let's ask this question just quickly, and let's not get into it in depth. But do you think yes or no? And then we'll get into our talking points. So we can come back to this. Corey, yes or no?
No.
Okay, Kyler, what do you think?
Not before the end of the year. No.
I would lean to saying no as well, and there would have to be some sort of issue. Like I don't know, getting fined $100,000 for altercation with your player. You know, there'd have to be another, which is in the news. There'd have to be another issue, I think, in my view, for the tap. And I think they're going to play out the season before they do anything like that. Mm-hmm. So let's get into it. You know, Corey, I asked everyone to come up with a couple of talking points. Corey, your first point is complacency on offense. Is JG okay with this? So why don't you tell us kind of what you're thinking here and your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts really start with just overall, we all see how the offense looks. I think everybody can pinpoint multiple areas of the offense that are unsuccessful, are areas that are concerning, areas that are crippling in terms of having success this year in the offense. But also, it just comes down to the point of just how they operate on offense in general, kind of just the style of offense. And again, we're seeing a lot of Clayton Adams talk now, obviously, with a lot of these charts and a lot of these graphics that are coming out when it comes to the Cowboys' success, their offensive line success. Also, with the players that they have on that offensive line, they obviously have that type of style where they can play kind of towards what Drew Petzing wants to play towards. And overall, it's just kind of just the nature of, does JG kind of know what he got himself into with Drew Petzing in terms of just how the offense has not quite evolved, taking that next step, the creativity that you may need to see in terms of having success in certain plays. And so obviously, he came out in these pressers and said that if any offensive questions, you bring them to me. Anything you have, any issues you have with the offense, you bring them to me. So, like, my question to the group is, like, are we really sure that JG is just fully okay with this type of offense, that you're watching your counterparts in NFC West, that they can score at multiple numbers needed for a game to win the game, and I should say this, the last 20 plus games, you're looking at a team that has barely gotten over 20 points per game. So, and you're telling me that you're okay with this in the presser. So I know he says it's okay with this, but do you think that he really should be, okay with this type of offense going out there week in and week out, I should say?
Yeah. Kyler, what do you think?
I think Jonathan Gannon has a real gift for coach speak and has gone through a lot of media training in what you should and should not divulge, particularly about your staff. And to some degree, it's respectable that as the top man, he, to a fault, will never throw someone beneath him under the bus, ever. Because we have seen messy situations in other franchises where stuff like that does happen, and it gets messy real fast. And I do think that is to his credit to a degree. However, this is not a transparent coach at all, and this is not a transparent organization at all. And I do not believe that Jonathan Gannon is a stupid person or even a stupid coach. He knows the problems, he knows how the game works, and he knows that they're not scoring enough points. He just philosophically is never going to say something out loud to go against someone that he's currently employing, like Drew Petzing. So very frustrating for us to hear that all the time. But I think he is just sticking with what his philosophy is as the man at the top of the totem pole. He obviously knows there's a problem. So I don't know. I don't believe he is so dumb that he cannot see the problem for what it is. I just think he will never throw someone underneath him under the bus.
Yeah, and I will say, I know people want to hear more from their coach. I'm fine with like not throwing your coaches under the bus, because behind closed doors, the conversations that need to happen will probably happen, and changes will probably be made. And what's going to happen is going to happen. What happens at the podium really is inconsequential to that, right? So you don't throw your guys publicly under the bus. Sometimes with players, you send a message if they need to be motivated, but that's not what you do with coaches. But Corey, you raised a really good question. Is JG okay with this? The way I look at this whole question of the offense and its complacency in offense and just really how it's gone down is this team had a vision and a philosophy that made sense if you look at the kind of offense they wanted to play and who their quarterback is. The game plan, the philosophy, the strategy was build a good defense, run the ball well, keep drives going by running the ball, and then you have a quarterback who is better at making big plays here and there, like Kyler, and we'll talk about this more. And I've been reflecting on Kyler Murray a lot. He's capable of making big plays, but he disappears for stretches. And I think my sense is that's because he's not the kind of quarterback who's going to pick apart the defense and kind of take what they give you. He's not the guy who's going to just pick apart those holes and kind of take you down the field like a pocket passer, typical pocket passer, field general. He's a guy who has the arm talent to make all the throws and the leg talent to make stuff happen when the throws aren't there. But if you look at it, he makes a lot more big plays, and then he takes sacks looking for the big play. Mm-hmm. And when you have that kind of quarterback, if you build an offense that runs the ball well and keeps the ball going and take your shots, that can work if the run game works. And Kyler, you said a few weeks ago, I think, that this run blocking is going to be the thing that breaks the season. And I think you were right on. I think they had a plan that would have worked if they could run the ball.
To your point, Corey, overall, I think JG is okay with the offensive philosophy that is in place on this team.
We have a super chat from JG. I'm very good at coach speak. Coach, thank you. Yes, you are.
You just had to give up $100K, Coach. How are you doing it?
Yeah, listen.
You should save that. Take that back.
You might want to save this. You might need it. Sorry, go ahead, Corey.
But I think exactly what you were saying. He is totally fine with this offensive philosophy because they were banking on having a good defense, which I do think all of those moves worked out. Looks like our defense is significantly improved over last year. Significantly. And if the run game was working exactly like it was last year, we're easily looking at 4-1, possibly 5-0. This would be a very different season if just one element of it changed, and that's the run blocking. And so I think philosophically, JG is okay with what the offense is. It just isn't working.
Yeah. It just always takes me back to his introductory press conference telling me, how adaptable his football team was going to be. And I believe that his defense, his first 2 years, with the non-talent that they didn't have, they were adaptable. They did what they had to do. This offense has not been adaptable for 3 years now. And that's where it's like, you can't go into some of these games, especially like I said in this division, just expecting 20 to 23 to 20 slugfest every game, and having success overall in a full season. When you're going with these counterparts, so I just think it's tough to bring this philosophical attention to the offense
Yeah.
when you don't do enough on that side of the ball.
I gotta say, with the personnel they have, with the kind of quarterback they have, going back to the point of the kind of quarterback Kyler is, right? The big play and the guy when things break down, he'll use his legs, but he's not going to pick apart the defense. And having a good defense and having what was supposed to be a good running game, I think that was the right philosophy with your personnel. It just didn't work. And you can point to Clayton Adams being like the thing that's missing. You can point to, and listen, this is where I think there's a fair critique. Monty not doing enough to fix this offensive line. Like now, some of the guys they drafted haven't worked out and have been injured, right? So you can point at that and the offensive line. You can point to the injuries of James Conner. I am not blaming this all on injuries. I think they have enough talent. They should have been able to overcome those injuries, but I don't hate the philosophy as an overall plan, the way, like, for the kind of like the building an offense around Kyler Murray, that makes sense. It just fell on its face, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Rombo, here's hoping Will Hernandez keeps moving forward with his health, right? And here's hoping. He played really badly though. Like he didn't play a lot in his PFF. I think he had a 4.4 pass blocking PFF grade. It was not good. Now, first came back from an injury, right? And maybe what you need to do is put Kyle in the shotgun, which is strength, and let him go to work. At this point, what do you have to lose, right? Maybe you just go throw it around, right? Or maybe bring in a proven running back. Maybe at this point, desperate times call for desperate measures. But whether we want to slam JG for being okay with this approach or not, I do think, again, I don't have a problem with the plans from a scheme wise. It just fell apart. You can argue again they didn't respond or adapt to it. There's some other issues and coaching issues, front office issues, but with where things are going, it feels like Gannon has lost the fan base. Some people say he's lost the team. I'm not going to go that far. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I don't like to speculate what players are thinking any more than I can't have to. But he's definitely, the fan base has turned on him so quickly, and understandably so. So, Kyler, your point is Jonathan Gannon. Can he win back the fan base?
It's an uphill climb from here. He, I think, bought himself quite a good amount of goodwill over the past 2 years, where we at least went into both seasons with expectation that this is a rebuild. And if you were any sort of realistic fan, you knew that playoffs weren't really on the table, and you just wanted to see your team get better and hoe that road towards actual contention. And this year was different. We went into it different. Our expectations as fans were built up to be different. They were built up by the organization. They were even partially built up by national media that, oh no, the Cardinals, they've gotten just a little bit better every year under Jonathan Gannon, and he's doubled their wins every year that he's been there. He's building a great culture there. No reason to think that they're not going to be a wild card team this year. This rebuild in Arizona is really impressive. We heard that all off season. So we're not crazy. Don't let yourself be gaslit. We were led to expect that this team was supposed to be good this year. And with that,
man, I'm telling you what, we have some esteemed people in the chat. We hit
really
Jonathan Gannon, and
entire
now the
fan base?
entire Cards fan base.
Wow.
Who's next?
We start off the season with that was weird type of game. Thinking going in, this is the New Orleans Saints. They're like the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 overall pick next draft. This should be a much better team. Our defense should be so much better. Let's rock and roll. Let's go in. Let's put 35 points on these frauds. No, we escape with a win, though, so okay, it's okay. And then we get a little bit gaslit by some elements of this community. Oh, you can't expect, massive wins all the time. Don't worry about the problems that you saw in front of your eyes the entire game. It's okay, fine. Let's go to week 2. We get another win. That's great. We're still acting like, I mean, even in this live stream, if you guys were here after week 2, it didn't feel great, even though we got a win. Went on the stat sheet as a win. It didn't feel great again. There are some serious problems with this team. Some serious problems with how this offense is going. And then lo and behold, 3 games in a row. And this last one, hosting the Tennessee Titans, the worst team in the league, 0-4 Tennessee Titans, whose own quarterback the week before had said, "Keep it a buck, we ass," comes in and beats you. And not in a big way, in a way that you completely allowed them to do to you. It was all self-inflicted mistakes, really. The Tennessee Titans did not beat us. We allowed the Tennessee Titans to win. And regardless if those were individual player execution problems, Jonathan Gannon is the coach. And we've seen it in 5 games now. This is a pretty decent sample size. This is not a disciplined team for whatever reason. That was one of their selling points past 2 years. Jonathan Gannon's teams, they're not super talented, but they're gritty and they're disciplined and they play really hard every single down and they sneak out some of those big time wins. And we did, like the Steelers game and the Eagles game. We had some of those nice wins in the first 2 years of Gannon's regime. And now, where you're supposed to finally arrive, his team looks worse than it ever has. And in one game, in the most embarrassing game of my fan life, embarrassing, not worst loss, but the most embarrassing loss, I don't know if he can win the fan base back.
And it ain't going to get any easier for him.
No,
right?
The season gets significantly harder.
Yeah. What do you think, Corey?
Yeah, I mean, Kyler, you used a great word, gaslit. I said this on my show, I believe, maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't like to be gaslit, and I feel like 1,000% I've been gaslit by Jonathan Gannon when it comes to just what you tell me I should be seeing and what to expect versus what we end up seeing and expecting. And it's now a weekly thing now where, your team this year is just making mistakes over and over again to the point where they're shooting themselves in the foot to almost lose games and now shooting themselves in the foot 3 straight times to lose games. There's numerous chunk plays getting taken off the field because of penalties, just miscommunication things that are still going on. The OC versus head coach, the entirety of that, it's just hard to put it all together and then say, Jonathan Gannon, this is a good product that you produced. Because again, you're looking at a counterpart in Mike McDonald, who now does have a winning record. He has a winning record in his first 2 seasons versus Jonathan Gannon, who you do get a mulligan in season 1 based on what happened. But the last 2 seasons, you had a good streak, but it was up and down and or bad at any point. And so far it's been up and down. And it's like, you're giving me 14 and 25 in these first couple games, and a lot of it's not changing the culture-wise. What we're told is that the culture is changing. And what the players, I said this to a couple of people in a group chat. I said, some of these players, I get that he got a good grade on the NFLPA report, but some of these players, they're all young. They're all first or second or third year players. This is all they know. They don't know anything else. So of course they think this guy speaks well to us. He puts us in great position. He takes care of us. This is what we know versus I'm not sure what a veteran would say. I'm pretty sure veterans obviously speak highly of them. And I do think highly of Jonathan Gannon as a head coach and a player's head coach. I think he can relate to the guys very well, but it's just coming to a point where it's results matter when it comes to you're talking about the Arizona Cardinals. It can't just be culture overall. It can't just be what you're trying to build. You have to build it, not only because of this division, but because this organization has been a losing one so far. So do I think he can win the fan base back? And in all honesty, I wear my heart on my sleeve a lot when it comes to the Cardinals. When I saw he got fined $100,000, he kind of won me back just right there. I was very mad at Jonathan Gannon for the last 2 days. And when I saw he got fined $100,000, I thought to myself, I want to see you be, in terms of not obviously assault a player. I don't think he did that, but overall, not assault a player. But you do need to choose somebody out because overall, Amari DiMercato, we're giving you a chance. We're giving you a chance to make your name in the NFL, and you're letting us down with plays that can easily be made up. So I do believe I want to chew you out because we don't know Amari DiMercato and Jonathan Gannon's relationship. They may have that relationship where they can do that and they still love each other. And I'm pretty sure that is the tough coaching that a lot of people saw with Bruce Arians. And a lot of it is just optics why he's getting fined $100,000. So overall, I'm back like, I want to see more of that, coach. If that's going to keep getting you fined, I want to see more of it because it might, induce a change. But overall, in terms of the entire fan base, he is losing it. I do agree. So I didn't mean to have a long spiel right there, but I do think,
No.
overall, he could be losing the fan base if this team doesn't win football games. If this team overall doesn't find its way to turning things around, and at the end of the day, we're talking about a tough division that you kind of have to go perfect in for the rest of the year to have success. But overall, if you win games, you finished out this season strong and win games, I think people will take his name out of the running in terms of this guy doesn't know kind of what he's doing, and it'll start focusing back on other people.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly that goodwill has dissipated because the fan base were, I think, really high on what he's done, the culture, the discipline, the team. They didn't love the way things ended last year, but the fact that he got improvements and just there was a lot of goodwill, and it has just gone. It dissipated. It's gone, and I think he's lost the fan base. There's always going to be some people who still believe him, but I think overall he's lost the fan base. Can he win the fan base back? Like, if he somehow pulled off a winning season, I think he would win some back, but he'd still have work to do. And with the schedule that's left, that would be pulling off 7 more wins would be very impressive when you look at the schedule. I see 2 teams that I think we have a reasonable chance against. Right, that's the Bengals if they're still having quarterback injury issues, and the Falcons, right, who are in a rebuild themselves. Right, every other team is a team that I don't feel good about our chances against. So if he pulls off a winning record, I'll be impressed because that schedule is really tough. But the overall assignment still ain't great. It's still a D plus because he was supposed to win 4 of these first 5 games, right? If not all 5 of them. So can he win the fan base back? He can, but I think it's going to be a 2-season process if he's able to do that. He would have to have a turnaround this season, win some games down the stretch that people didn't expect him to win, and at least get close to a 500 record. So he'd have to really impress people by beating teams they're not supposed to beat and overcoming that. And then next year, he'd still have work to do to have a good start and have a good season next year. That's, to me, what it would take to win fan base back. 2 years, and he might not get that second year, right? And so it's really rough. And, the elephant in the room is here. So we've got another esteemed guest. Why do Cardinals fans never want to talk about me, even though they can clearly see me? What gives? Well, the reason is because of hope. Now, I'm not sure which elephant you're referring to, but the reason we don't like to is because we have hope. We want something to work out, and that hope gives us the blinders that sometimes makes us overlook. And I'm as guilty of that as anyone. I heard people talking about the offensive line being concerned in the offseason that they didn't do enough. My response was, I think you're right, but the offensive line wasn't bad last year. And I think I think they'll be good enough. And then it hasn't been good enough, right? So I know people talked about a second wide receiver, maybe that one. I still think with the way this offense is built, I don't know that it's a second receiver is making that big of a difference. I think you've got enough receiving. That's my view. But the offensive line is a big deal. So, why do we? It's because of the hope that we have. And that's why this loss hurts so bad, because it's the hope that kills you. I can't tell you how many times I've said year 3 of a rebuild, right? And going into the season, expected this to be the year they made a playoff push. This is the year they're supposed to beat good teams and win 11 games and maybe push for the division, maybe end up in a wild card. That's what they were supposed to do, right? You were the chosen one, right? This was supposed to be the year. And it has failed miserably, right? Even the wins are barely wins and so that's why this one hurts so bad, is because I know I was excited drinking the Kool-Aid. Monty's built this thing the right way. JG's brought the right culture. Kyler's buying in. And and then we have this hope. Year 3, you saw, the Lions are the team I always kind of look at as that model, right? Year 3, they were a really good playoff team, right, of their rebuild, and that's what we expected, and it hasn't worked out. And this game, like, this was supposed to be where we got back on track. And in my mind going into this game, I thought anything less than a decisive win isn't good enough. And
Mhm.
oh my god, like, it was like the universe laughed at that thought and said, a win, right? And gave us this. So that's why it hurts so much. I'm going to say hey to some of the folks in chat, and then Corey, we'll let you kind of respond to this.
Mhm.
We've got Dana saying hi, Corey. Who I know she's regular in your chat. She's in all the chats. She's
Yes,
awesome.
Dana.
We
Yes,
got Ann.
appreciate
Thanks
it.
for being here. Losing Clayton Adams exposed Petzing completely and ruined our year 3 jump. If Petzing doesn't have a top 5 run game, and we know his pass game is terrible, in my opinion, why is he caller? If K1 can't run the offense and they can't adjust to him, then they should have traded him. Yeah, I mean, listen, ain't great. So, what do you think about the pain of this one, Corey?
Yeah, the hope is a great word. Obviously, we all have hope every year going into it, and I think everybody had hope going into this season, just because of the stuff that you laid out, but because we thought we signed all these players on defense. Defense multiple times kind of broke our backs. Obviously, the offense's inability to progress at the end of last season kind of hurt. But you said, we hope that this offense can get better with Drew Petzing another year in the system. A lot of the guys like the system going into the next year. Trey McBride mentioned the sauce that was added. Kyler Murray mentioned the things that he'd be doing more in the offense. We all said year 3. We said, okay, this offense, you give me a little bit better production, like against the good teams and the bad teams, but just a little bit better production overall. And this defense goes from a bottom 10 unit to what they are now, which is near a top 10 unit overall. Like, you just start looking at it and you're saying, like, okay, here we go. New year, the schedule, it lines up for us to start. There are some competitive games to start, but overall, you got some knockable games away. And, you're hanging into a lot of these games. As Kyler mentioned earlier, you're just like, yeah, these are wins, but they don't feel great. And so you're just going into these games, and then, you have the slip up in San Francisco. You say it's a one-off. There were plays to be made. You had the slip up against Seattle where you just didn't get anything going, but you woke up the next half, or the fourth quarter, I should say, and you said, okay, the Tennessee game, they got 10 days off, knock this one off, 10 days to get right. And we know, obviously, with the way that the injuries have piled on and things that were happening, this was the 10 days to readjust your team and go for it, a stretch run. And then we come out here, it looks great to start, but then you start seeing the same things over and over, which is after the scripted plays, a lot of things just start dying down with this offense. And then you say, wow, okay, shake it off. It's 21-6. The game, all you have to do is just hold off for one more quarter. You're out of here. Imari DiMercado takes it up the middle, and you're like, there we go. The game is over. I can relax. And then you come out. He doesn't end up scoring. And next thing you know, you blink and you've lost the game. And you're saying, well, now you just have to start questioning every possible thing that comes with the organization. You have no choice, because whatever the process that is going on is not working enough to beat the lowest team in the NFL. And now you become the lowest team in the NFL, at least fan wise. And overall, you're not the lowest team in the NFL record wise, but you have that mantra until somebody else loses to the Titans. Then you're saying, well, this is the next lowest team in the NFL. So it's just a lot of, I want to hope for this team, but every time it seems like we hope, in my 26 years, I should say, of life, every time it seems like we've hoped, that hope gets snatched away from something. And especially these last 10 years or so, a lot of that hope has just been snatched away. This honestly, as you guys mentioned, the most embarrassing loss. This is beyond any type of playoff loss that we've had. It's no way, impossible way, that you should have lost this game, and then we end up talking about a loss. So the hope is there, but it dies very fast in a game like Sunday. Makes it the flame go out immediately.
Tyler, your pain has been broadcast to I don't know how many homes in the Phoenix area. It has been broadcast.
Right. I text this to Joe the other day, but yesterday a friend from middle school who I've not talked to since middle school, she moved back to Arizona, like, I don't know, in 8th grade or something. She messaged me on Instagram and she sent me a picture of her television and said, "Why did I just turn on the news and I saw your name?" And apparently there was some spot on whatever the local Fox news station is in Arizona. I'm not familiar because I'm not from there. Um, and it was, just going over how Cardinals fans are grieving this very embarrassing loss, and it had one of my tweets up on the screen saying, "Sometimes I truly believe the decision to become a Cardinals fan was the worst one of my entire life." And that was said in the heat of the moment in the fourth quarter, as it was clear what was happening to us. Yet again, we hadn't even completely lost by that point, but we were gonna. You knew it in your heart as soon as there was only a 2-point lead, exactly what was going to happen. And it did. Channel 10 Fox, there you go. That's where I was. So if any of you guys saw that, you're welcome. But I do stand by it to a degree. This team has given me very few big win moments in my lifetime. And I started being a fan like a year or two before the Super Bowl run. And I chose Arizona Cardinals just because of Larry Fitzgerald, basically. Like, Larry Fitz was the man in football. And so I followed his team, and I've been there ever since. And they've given me that run, which ended in absolute trauma, and still not over it.
Mm-hmm.
Gave me, the nice NFC Championship game run, which the season as a whole, awesome. The way it ended, trauma. But this one felt worse than literally any game I've ever watched in my entire life. Because I had hope, genuine hope, at the beginning of this season. The last two, like Joe and I have been on these streams for years now, and I think for the most part, both of us are pretty realistic fans and knew exactly what these last 2 years were going to be and were supposed to be. Yeah, we got a little bit excited last year when we had the 6-4 start. Like, yeah, maybe the rebuild's a little bit ahead of a schedule, and then things fell off. But that's pretty easy to brush aside. Don't worry, it was just second year. We'll be fine. This one, like, actually did break my fan heart quite a bit. Because I, up until this game, really did believe in Jonathan Gannon. I liked what he was doing in Arizona, and he lost me really fast with that performance and just the performances his team has given us this year. The fan base deserves better, and the organization, top to bottom, is completely failing a whole group of people that support it and give it their hard-earned money that they go and sell their time at their jobs all week for, and give us absolutely nothing in return. And it gets incredibly frustrating. And I've never been a super emotional fan, but this is the most frustrated I've ever been, that I've given my time and my money and my emotional support to a team that just doesn't give a shit about me or putting a good product on the field.
You're right. And like the year 3 of the rebuild brought about a change in our expectations and our hope, and that's why this one hurt. But it seems like that year 3 and the shift and the development also brought about a change in philosophy, in how they've approached finishing games. And Corey, I'm going to let you kind of unpack this, but it seems like we're not the only ones who've had a shift in year 3.
Yeah, like literally, I've been so baffled, as many people have, with the last couple of games, especially against some of these good teams and games that you're in, where obviously we've stuck it out our nose at least the multiple times of the conservative play calling. Obviously on Sunday, it's come down to the literally 4 straight plays of runs with DeMercado and Michael Carter and Bam Knight. Like, these are running plays that when you need one more first down in order to close the game out and walk away with the W, or you can kneel it out, you hand the ball off to, technically, if you're talking about roster wise, RB3, RB4, and RB5 more times than not in a game, especially, and again, at the end of the game. And it's just the conservative nature to where we saw games when we had absolutely nothing to lose, we were much more of an aggressive unit. They tried on fourth down more. They took more risks. You could just tell a lot of the things were just, balls to the walls technically in terms of how they just went about playing. And I thought that's what I was going to continue to get when the team developed and got better. And so you see the games against Minnesota last year and a couple of the other games where they just did a lot of conservative nature things where it's like you want to trust and lean on this side of the ball instead of just ending the game in your hands. I think about how the Lions operate overall. Just they want to end the game with their personnel on the field, with their choices, and that always means taking every risk possible. And so, and like I said, in a season where you had absolutely nothing to lose, our philosophy a lot was, go for it, do everything that we can to win the games. While in a season where, at least to us as fans, and it's a big question I have overall in terms of it, but to us as fans, a lot is on the line this year in terms of just how we think about our rebuild. Joe, I know you mentioned year three, how we want to talk about Kyler Murray in terms of, is he our franchise guy? And this team has to get to the playoffs in order to feel good about it. So to us, fan-wise, a lot is on the line, and they're taking instances where they don't quite want to put everything on the table. And especially when you have a quarterback making $40 million, there's no reason to not be putting everything on the table and putting him in the opportunity to end the game. So it's just been a weird shift to see, like, even in this season now, after all the mistakes that we had last year being conservative, we're continuing to see the same conservatism going into this season in games where if you just put the ball in somebody else's hands that's not just on the ground or just being safe and taking a risk, it may come off as a big reward.
Kyler, what do you think?
It feels like the coaching staff felt themselves a bit too much in the way that this team was built up to, supposed to be supposed to be a contending team, supposed to be a playoff team. And then you get to this season where even they're starting to believe it. They're drinking their own stuff. And it turns from, like you were saying, Corey, whatever, like, what do we have to lose? We're in a rebuild. Let's do some crazy stuff, and we're gonna have bad games, and we're gonna be forgiven those, but we're gonna have some of those crazy games where we beat teams like the Eagles. And now that they're like, we're supposed to be good, let's just not lose the game. We're supposed to be good. We've got a lot more talent on defense now, which Jonathan Gannon, as a defensive coach, and this is just sort of a general critique of a lot of defensive coaches, they do tend to get really conservative once they get a really good defense, because they know, and Jonathan Gannon knows, I trust in his ability to evaluate defensive talent, at least, that he's like, yeah, I would rather trust my defense, who I know is good, to be the last guys on the field. And it completely shifts your mindset from, we have to kill this team and step on their throats, like a team like the Titans, where there were multiple 40-point games last week. There is no excuse that this team did not put up 40-plus points on the Tennessee Titans. We did 21, which is technically the most our offense has scored all season. They've only scored 20 points. That 27-point game was a defensive score. You're right, Jonathan. And why have you been doing it, man? Yes, your defense is better. But no, you should always have a goal of ending the game with your quarterback kneeling the ball. And this, oh my God. This last game where you're already down to your third and fourth string running back, and your offensive coordinator decides to hand it off 3 times in a row, and your answer is, well, I'm not going to override my offensive coordinator. I don't care, man. You are the head coach. And at the end of the day, that is your failing and your responsibility that you gave it to a third string running back instead of, I don't know, the number 1 overall pick, a Heisman winning quarterback who you have should have an entire playbook of third down plays where you go, man, we've got this quarterback who can throw to pretty much any place on the field and also runs a 4.3. I think there's 2 quarterbacks in the NFL who can do that. Maybe we should use him, perhaps. We have the number 4 overall pick from a couple years ago, Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the best college receivers of all time. You should have JT. You
Just
really should have.
listen to us.
You
And
had a
you
lot of really good
have
advice.
arguably the best tight end in the NFL right now to throw to.
You have the best tight end in the league.
Mhm.
And that was your decision, and your excuses, well, in the moment, it was just really fast, and I made the wrong decision and didn't call a timeout. That's not good enough anymore, man. This is your third year as a head coach. That is a rookie head coach, never been a head coach before type of, I'm going to learn from this and I'm going to get better. That was an absolutely inexcusable sequence of plays at the end of that game. And you seem in this philosophical switch from the previous years to now, like you're saying, Corey, you seemed more content with, F it, whatever, try it, and let's just get our defense back out on the field. They'll close this game out for us, because that's what they did the first two games when we won close. Our defense closed it out for us, and it's not working, man. That is the overall failing that I've seen other franchises and other places just in NFL history with defensive coaches. Sometimes they're great, and you can get a Bill Belichick in the exact right situation to make a defensive head coach work, but oftentimes they're too conservative when it comes down to it.
And comments, my bad, Joe. And comments like the one he mentioned in the presser, talking about, like you mentioned, I won't override my OC.
That's
You
your
can't
job.
freeze. You can't
If
freeze.
you know
Exactly.
it's a bad call, that is
Exactly.
your job to override him.
Exactly. There's no reason for you to be freezing in any moment against the Titans and Brian Callahan. He is not the caliber of coach to be freezing against. You should be dominating him, because everybody in the NFL thinks you're a better coach than him. So there
Brian
is no
Callahan
reason
should
for
have
you to be doing
lost
that.
his job
Yeah.
on Monday.
Yes, there was we were on the way to maybe a 50-10 game, and he would have been fired the next day. And because you were so okay with just letting it, we'll get out of here, we'll get out of here, we'll get out of here. That philosophy killed you, and you now are become the laughing stock, of the NFL.
Like we talked about this earlier in the stream, their overall offensive philosophy that they had going into the season was a relatively conservative philosophy, right? Defense, run the ball, take some shot plays, run the ball. And I don't mind that philosophy for the reasons I talked about earlier. It makes sense with the kind of quarterback you have, what his strengths are. It makes sense with the good defense. As an overall philosophy, I don't mind it. But the decisions that have been baked within that, embedded within that, to go extra conservative, overly conservative in some of the particular play calling, right? In terms of, you know, running the ball in 3rd and 8, like that's crazy. Like that's like there's just the conservative play philosophy I don't mind, but the leaning too conservative in some of those play callings to close out the game, and especially with the way things were going, barely winning your first 2 games, losing the 2 games, like it is time to start taking some more risks. And you're right, Corey, like to just like freeze, and I can't think of any. And I saw the quote you're talking about in the press, that sometimes under the gun with time, you've got to play in, and you don't necessarily love the play, but and I get it. Like when you're kind of in short time, that sort of, what do you do? But you're a professional NFL coach, and your job is to be ready for that and not to freeze. I can see why I would freeze if I'm playing Madden, the time's running down, but I'm not a professional NFL coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just crazy. And so I agree with you, like that. I don't mind the conservative philosophy to the overall offensive plan, but the overly conservative play calling I don't love that, right? Real quick, I want to say to a couple more folks. We got Side Apple. Thanks for being here. Hey guys, I have a question. If we don't win more than 4 games, then it's guaranteed to be fired. What do you think, Corey? Like if they win only 4 games this year, do you think he's definitely out?
More than 4 games would mean they went 2-10 for the rest of the year. It'd be hard to. If Kyler Murray plays every single game, that'd be very hard to sell me that why he should stay. I think that would be just you've clearly lost the locker room on the team in terms of how they respond to you, especially if all these games are, some of these games are not close. I think if he only won 2 more games on the season, guaranteed is hard, what's it called, but higher than 80%, I would definitely say so.
What do you think, Kyler?
It's hard to talk in absolutes, and Michael Bidwell has shown himself to be an idiot on several occasions.
Yeah.
But 4 games, probably.
Mm-hmm.
3 years kind of is the leash that most head coaches get.
Mm-hmm.
And if you significantly regress from season 2 to season 3, you usually get fired then, because you won 4 games your first season as a head coach, inheriting an absolute dumpster fire. So yeah, if we go 2-10 the rest of the way, I think he probably does.
I think so too. Well, guys, we gotta back off on our slander.
That's what I was laughing at earlier.
Mike Callahan is in the room. Don't talk smack no
He
more.
heard me. Wow. Sorry, Cap. Sorry, Brian. Congrats.
My bad.
Sorry.
Good job.
Congrats on the win, man.
Coach
Congrats.
of the year. Robert Moore, thanks for being here, hanging out with us. I do want to just touch on this. I know there's been some conversation like Lorenzo, and this is something you talked about earlier, Corey, showing emotions and then he gets fined.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think, and then, I think Dana pointed out that it was the physical contact that got him the fine, not the yelling.
Mm-hmm.
I generally lean towards, don't hit the player. And it's not like he hurt him or anything. He's wearing pads. I do think Michael Bidwell is always very cognizant of public perception. And because of all the stuff inside the building, that's kind of, he's rightly been criticized for his kind of temper and the way he's treated people. I think he's probably hyper sensitive to perceptions of that. So that's probably why that part of the reason that fine came down. But it is what it is, right? So, but I'll tell you, there's been a lot of talk about Kyler Murray, and we've got Omnidius in here's team who's hashtag Team Kyler, and I think that's kind of the thing we want to talk about here. Like Kyler Murray, this is not on him, but we're probably approaching the end of the era. And Kyler, this is your kind of talking point, so I'll let you kind of get us started.
Right. And real quick about the fine. We saw earlier today Jerry Jones getting a $500,000 fine for flipping some fans off. So, maybe Bidwell's just trying to circumvent any sort of league discipline and, I'll do it myself. Don't worry about it, and give him a $100,000 fine, which I know there's going to be debate over the touching of a player and everything, but and I'm very much not one of those like, people need to stop being pansies type of people. Yeah. But these are grown men in pads in football. You really think that doesn't happen?
Yeah.
Like, these are men in a sport that they're playing. Like, it happens. Come on, guys. And DeMarcado absolutely deserved to be chewed out by his coach, 1,000%. But to go on to the Kyler Murray problem, looking just at these 5 games, you could not possibly convince me that the reason this season is going the way it is because of Kyler Murray. You cannot look at this with any type of objective measure and say, the reason we are a bad team this year is because of Kyler Murray. Absolutely not. However, I do think you can make the argument that in year 7, it's probably just never going to work out here. For whatever reason, Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals are probably just not going to work out. There was a weird situation with Cliff, who stalked him since he was a young man and finally snagged him. And then, that whole situation. And now I think he's in a situation where the coaches respect him, and he at least has seemed to respect the coaches. But I probably disagree a touch with you, Joe, in the way that the offense has been built with Petzing and with Kyler Murray. I just don't see the Petzing offense and Kyler Murray meshing in any way, really. Like, it is an offense where Kyler Murray is a talented athlete, and of course he can run offenses that are not completely his thing. But if you inherit this situation where you're really tied to a guy monetarily, fan-wise, like, you're tied to this quarterback who is not a bad quarterback, but has a very specific set of skills, and you decide, instead of, you know what, I've got this chance with a whole new team, I'm going to build absolutely every element of it around this guy who does these things particularly, specially, uniquely well. Instead, I'm going to take this system that I learned in a different place that requires power running, a certain type of offensive line, a certain type of running back, and certain types of tight ends. And you know what? The quarterback, F him. I don't care that he has some special, unique physical abilities. I don't care. I want Joe Flacco out there to run this offense. And that just feels like malpractice to me. Like, I don't see where in the building of this team, which is a failing of Monty Austin too, who I generally do support quite a lot, to build a team that takes into account that Kyler Murray is the quarterback. It's like they built a team and they built an offensive scheme with generic quarterback written in instead of Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray can do certain things better than almost anyone in the league. And we, between two regimes now, just don't care. And we don't use him that way. And it's insanely frustrating. And it's probably frustrating for him too. So the reason I say we're probably approaching the end of an era, honestly, hashtag free Kyler. I think he has the ability to go somewhere else and be immensely successful in the perfect situation. And his greatest failing is he's not a Tom Brady. He's not someone that's going to adapt to any system and make it better and put the team on his back. But I do think he can be a successful quarterback in this league with the right situation, and we're just never going to give it to him. So if that's what we're going to do, then we need to find some more standard run-of-the-mill milquetoast quarterback to run that type of offense and let him go be successful somewhere else. So I don't think our failings this year, he has problems. Do not get me wrong. This is not me glazing Kyler Murray. He has problems and things that should not be a problem in year 7. Sure, he is not a complete quarterback. But it's not working out here. And particularly if this staff and this sort of offensive philosophy continues past this year, it's never going to work out here for him. He's never going to reach his potential in this system. And like Brett Jones pointed out, I think you could get Mac Jones in here to like run the offense just as well as someone with a unique skill set. It seems a complete waste to me of a uniquely physically talented quarterback that Arizona has never had, ever, the physical gifts of Kyler Murray, and we've done nothing with it. So we might as well cut this experiment, let him go have a Baker Mayfield success story somewhere else, and we get a fresh start with someone else and probably a new coaching staff if we only win 2 more games this year.
What do you think about that, Corey?
Yeah, I'm been a staunch Kyler Murray supporter as well. I'm not gonna hide that. I'm not gonna act like that's something that I haven't had, because I would like to see my quarterback. I've seen his talent. I know the talent that he is as a player, and I want to see him succeed here. But I can't agree more with the sentiment that it might just be over here, and I don't think that has anything to do with him as a player. But it's just it's run its course here in terms of the chances that he's had. But I also don't think organizationally anything has been properly, Kyler, as you mentioned, built properly around a player of his skill set. A lot of people mention his size. I also think if Kyler, was 5 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier, he'd have the same issues. So me personally, the issues of him being a small quarterback has never really been that thing to me. It's more so I've seen this mentioned around a ton of if we're talking about a quarterback that's about 5'10" and smaller, you would want to have great interior play for that player, because he has told you that he's able to evade tackle edge or edge pressure, I should say. But the interior pressure is something that's always going to be a thing for him, because he doesn't do things consistently like step up in the pocket, where I've seen him improve in stepping up in the pocket under this regime, because this regime trains quarterbacks as though they are, as you mentioned, a Joe Flacco type of quarterback, a system type of quarterback, a backup QB type of quarterback, which is kind of the offense where I said it is this offense is built around a backup quarterback. Don't hurt me, make the smart plays. That's how we'll get down the field based off of the run game. Where it's Well, we have a player that, as Kyler mentioned, 4.3 speed. We're talking about ability to make a lot of throws. Like, that should be on the perimeter way more than what it is. Like, he should be on the move consistently. A defense should not be able to just bottle in a player that they are able to do so, I would think, because the offense is a lot of phone booth type of play. Like, we're going to go north and south on you. We're not going to really attack the perimeter. When we do attack the perimeter, we have to make sure it works, because we see Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler not have that great of a connection, because a lot of the miscommunications come because they don't attack the perimeter enough. So when you don't have success running the football, when you don't have the ability to block interiorly for a player that doesn't like to step up, there are just a lot of things organizationally that Monty Ossenfort has kind of failed the quarterback. The quarterback has also not taken a lot of steps forward as well, and that is a part of the problem. But that's the problem in general, is that we can't keep wasting our time on this for him and for us, our sake. So I couldn't agree more that that it's not on him at all. It's not on him in terms of this season, in terms of the overall issue and why we're not winning football games. But it is time to just say, you know what, do elsewhere, and we will figure something else out. Because again, the only thing, in my opinion, hampering or tying the Cardinals to Kyler Murray is the contract. If his contract was a lot less, they would have no problem either cutting it or trading it. So it's like, that's the overall issue. Is like, Monty Ossenfort, you had the ability, you had the chance to come in here and craft the offense around Kyler Murray. It hasn't worked out based on the personnel choices and the coaching choices. And so now you have to pivot into a new direction if you want to continue on here.
I also have been a long time Kyler Murray apologist, right? I've been a staunch defender of him. And after the game, or really during the game, Kyler Bird and I text often during the games, and I was kind of texting, hey, I'm out on Kyler Murray. And during the post game live stream, I talked about that, and I've reflected on that a lot, right? That's kind of how I was feeling in the moment, and some folk, there were some comments on the live stream saying, we were maybe being too critical, and I do think some of me saying that I was out on him was misinterpreted by some people. I think I certainly have not and do not think Kyler is the reason this isn't working this year. I did say, and I do stand by this, that in a game against the Titans, the worst team in the NFL, going into that game, I still would have liked to have seen more from Kyler. Like he didn't have a bad game, but he didn't have a great game. There were some stretches that it was a very typical Kyler game. Some good stretches with some big plays and disappearing for long stretches. There were some things out of his control. And he's not the reason they lost the game by any stretch. He put them in a position to win it, and they screwed that up. But against this team, I would have liked to seen him disappear less. I would have liked to seen him elevate even more and kick the snot out of this team, right? And I didn't see that next level. So that, I still think that critique of the game is fair. That doesn't mean he's the reason we lost. For an elite franchise quarterback, you want in a game like this to see even more, right? You want to see them be a bully, right? And he wasn't. Some of that's on the play calling, so I totally get that. But I do not blame Kyler Murray for what's gone on. His season has not been great, but not been horrible. He has not been the reason we've lost games. He's kept us in games. He's made some big plays, but it's his, he's in the middle of the pack PFF grade. I know that's not everything, right? He's been more consistent than the past, which is something we wanted to see out of him. I get a lot of the things failing around him are a lot of the reason what's going on here. But I still kind of tend to agree he's not the problem, but I don't know that he's the solution either. And I think Robert, I agree with Robert. Kyler, I might put him if he at this list. I think he's near the top of that list. Daniel Jones, Darnold, and Mayfield. He's up there with Mayfield. I think he's talent at the top of this list, talent wise. But to me, I think he's one of those kinds of quarterbacks who is good enough that and has the skills that if you but he does have deficiencies, some things like size, stepping up in the pocket. But most quarterbacks have limitations. So that's not a total indictment, right? But he has limitations. And then as Kyler Bird says, there's some things he does better than almost anyone else on earth, right? But for me, he's the kind of quarterback that if you put him on a team that has a good culture, a good roster, and good pieces around him, and if you have a team that can maybe eke out a 500 record with a replacement of a quarterback, you put Kyle on the team, they're a 10 or 11 win team. He's that kind of quarterback. But if you put him on a team that's a 4-win team and expect him to get you to a 10 or 11 win team, he's not that kind of quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's where this team feels like right now, right? As much as I love some of the things they've done. So I tend to feel like, do we want to like make Kyler deal with another couple years of this rebuild and be the quarter till they have the pieces around him where he can be in that situation where he can thrive? Or does he need to move on, and do we need to move on? And that's kind of where I'm more landing. So I let me be clear. I still like Kyler Murray. I think he's done everything they've asked of him. I don't think he's a bad dude. And if he goes somewhere else, I will want him to succeed. Like I will pull for him to succeed.
Yep.
So I do want to pose this question. I mentioned this to you before, Kyler. I didn't mention this to you, Corey. So I'm gonna put you on the spot. But like, can you name like if he were to move on, right? And Dan, we'll get to your comment after this. We'll come back to this. And I know Grandizer asked, what could we get for him? I do think you could maybe get a late first round pick from a team, maybe. But I don't know that you're getting a ton for him. But like, there's teams that would take him for sure. But where would you think if he does end up moving on? What do you think is the kind of landing spot where he would be ideal for him to be successful? There's a couple in the chat that folks have mentioned, but Corey, why don't you let you get started?
Yeah, it's so hard for me, obviously, watching the renaissances of Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. And again, I know people don't think Kyler is a competitor like that. I can promise you, the kid looks really like a competitor. I don't know him personally, but I can tell anybody that never has lost a high school football game, in my opinion, I get it. It's high school football. We're talking about the elitist of the elite in Texas. Like, that's not a non-competitive person. Like, you cannot convince me that it's not a dog type of mentality that wants to go out there and win for his team. But at the same time, like, in terms of just what it would look like I'm not 1,000% like where I could end up seeing him, but I've always kind of pictured it as like, this is like a type of player where the Steelers have been begging for a player just like Kyler Murray. Please just come in, do a lot of good things for us. We're going to take care of you. We're going to look to do the things that we need to do. And I have a head coach that can mentally instill you in terms of how NFL success looks. Like, he has never had a head coach that knows what NFL success looks like. And at the end of the day, that means something. Regardless of what you think Kyler Murray's potential should be, it means something to know what type of a coach to know what success looks like on this level. And that's what he's reaching to. We've seen the kid have stats. We've seen him have success. He's gone to Pro Bowls. He's went to the playoffs. He's had a good season. We haven't seen him know how to win in a consistently in a league that is the hardest league, because he's never had that around him. So he's the one trying to help maneuver a rookie head coach to know how to do it as well. And they're learning. And again, it's a lot of issues. We know that with the player, but I've always thought, like, I'm from Baltimore, so I know the Steelers-Ravens rivalry well. Like, that is a player that Mike Tomlin is begging for, because Mike Tomlin will never be in a position to get up Kyler Murray. But if Kyler Murray is available, just like he got Aaron Rodgers, even though he's 40, I'm going to take that chance on getting that player that I know is supremely talented, because I'm not going to put a lot on his plate. I'm going to coach the football team. I'm going to ask him not to hurt us. And that's what they want to do here. But obviously, we mentioned the team and the coaching staff isn't built to know how to do that properly. So it becomes all on Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is the lone Cardinal entity. So everything that happens with the Cardinals always ties into Kyler Murray's success. Is he good or is he bad? And that's just kind of where it stems to. So I've always said the Steelers, obviously, any good QB coach, any team that has a good offensive philosophy or has developed quarterbacks well, Shanahan, McVay's tree, like anybody really from there, they'd have success with him as well. But I've always said the Steelers was my go-to for him for sure.
Kyler, where do you think would be a landing spot for him that you would
Steelers?
see?
Interesting. I had not thought about that. But it would be kind of like what they tried to do with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. It didn't work out. I think Kyler Murray's a tier above both of those guys. So that would be interesting. I think the clear-cut answer where I could see him going in day one to an established system, a team with a good enough offensive line, some top tier offensive talent. I'm talking probably the best wide receiver in football. I think if you threw Kyler Murray on the Minnesota Vikings right now, then he would be supremely successful.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin O'Connell, the past 2 years now, has had a surprising amount of success with quarterbacks that were not supposed to be successful. The dude is a quarterback whisperer, and I think Sean McVay has a lot of those qualities too. Kyle Shanahan has a lot of those qualities. He can make any quarterback shine in his system, and unlike our coaching staff, Kyle Shanahan's pretty adaptable. You know,
Yeah.
considering the amount of injuries that team has had in the past 2 to 3 years, Kyle Shanahan is immensely adaptable and still finds ways to succeed. But if I chose one, I think Kyler on the Minnesota Vikings would be like an immediate jump forward for him and for that team. I think they would be really, really great together, actually.
Yeah, I won't take too long on this because I don't want to spend too much more time on this. But the Steelers was my thought too, Corey, because that to me is the textbook, a team that can be 500 with a replacement level quarterback, but he could elevate it. Mike Tomlin, I have so much respect, such a great coach.
Yeah.
Never had a losing season. He's made it happen. Ben Roethlisberger he won a Super Bowl with Ben Roethlisberger, hasn't since, but he hasn't had a quarterback that good since. And I could totally see Kyler Murray being there. I think the Vikings is a great possibility too. Brent, I think, lists a lot of the teams where he's most likely to end up. The Jets or the Saints seem, and the Falcons all seem like good possibilities. They're not the ideal landing spots, but those are places. In the Rams, maybe. I do think McVay, if he's still there, I mean, he traded away Goff to get, Stafford. So I think he wants a certain type of quarterback. I don't know that Kyler would be that, but yeah. So we had a super chat from Dana, and she's making a point. How do you have a play in your playbook with no possible audibles in 2025? Failing of the coaching staff, right?
Absolutely.
You've got to have something. So 100%, Dana. Thank you for your patience with that. I think that, yeah. I mean, again, that play is just to me inexplicable, indefensible. How they failed on that play. That's not the only reason they lost, right? But yeah. So I want to just kind of, we've talked about this a little bit. The future, right? And it's really sad that we're having to have that conversation in week 5. But with the schedule that's before us, I just have a hard time seeing this season being anything but loss. It would be an epic, miraculous turnaround to make the playoffs this year, right? It would be just remarkable. And there's some talented players on this team, but with what the coaching has done, I just don't see it. So I don't want to take too long on this because we're already going over, but let's talk about what do we think? What do you think 2026 looks like for this Arizona Cardinals team? And I'll let you guys go first, and I'll wrap it up. What do you between coach, players, GM, anything? What do you think's going on in 2026? However you want to describe that, Corey.
Yeah, I think Gannon is still here. I think they do rip off a couple wins going forward. I do think if they don't make the playoffs, the Kyler Murray experience is just, we're going to look to move off of him. If we can't move off of him, they're going to have him on the roster next year, but they're going to have to develop a plan in order to, get themselves into a next boat. So I should say, I do see Drew Petzing being gone. Drew Petzing has to go. And I do believe that if you do not make the playoffs and you are going to run it back with Kyler Murray, there's going to have to be a new offense. So looking forward, I think a lot of people are going to still be here, but overall, Kyler Murray probably is not going to be here if they can move off of him. Jonathan Gannon is still here, and they have to reset their offensive philosophy in terms of how they're going to attack.
Yeah. Kyler, what do you think 2026 is going to look like?
I mean, I agree that almost regardless of what happens, Drew Petzing is gone at the end of the season. Unless it is the most miraculous turnaround ever, and we win 8 of the next 12 games, something crazy, then maybe he saves his job and shows himself to be supremely adaptable and whatever. That, I think, is the only way he could save his job. I think in a realistic scenario, this team probably ends the year with 6 to 7 wins. We'll win the 2 that we really should, and then just like the past 2 years, we'll probably steal a few, maybe from some unsuspecting teams late in the season. So if we get to about 7 wins, 1 win less than last year, I do think Jonathan Gannon probably gets 1 more year. Drew Petzing gets fired. Monty Austinfort will, of course, remain the general manager. And in that case, I think it's pretty likely, actually, that Kyler Murray stays with the team for 1 more year. There's a pretty significant dead cap hit in 2026 if they just move off of him in a cut. So if you maybe a trade is maybe the only real situation I could see them moving off of Kyler Murray. So probably in the most realistic of scenarios, because I have such little faith that the Cardinals will make sweeping changes and try to fix things. It probably ends with no Drew Petzing and 1 more year of Jonathan Gannon with Kyler Murray and a new offensive coordinator.
I just keep going back and forth. And if I seem wishy-washy or inconsistent, it's probably because I really am so ambivalent and I'm just so torn. And the one moment I'm like, free Kyler, let him go somewhere else, start anew, fire Gannon. But then I hear you guys describe that, and I like, I think there are some good things they've built on the roster, and maybe they decide to give it another year. JG was Monty's guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He handpicked him. Kyler, if he continues to play well enough that like he's consistent in the system, I could see that being the reality that Petzing's gone. I hate to say this, I could even see them keeping Petzing and just deciding they need to fix the offensive line. And there's a universe in which that does make the whole offense work. I'm not saying that's what I want, but I'm just saying I see a universe.
It would be a super happens. Cardinals thing to do.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be the most Cardinals thing to do, right?
That hope you're talking about would not be there at all 2026 if he was still the OC going into it, especially if this season continues to go the way it is.
Yeah. JG's on a 5-year contract, right? And so I think Kyler, and Corey, I think the most, if you said place a bet on what you think the most likely scenario for next year is, and just go with the probabilities is most likely, I think Petzing gone and more or less everything else gets 1 more year. I could see it going in different directions. And I do want to end this, my brand here has been optimism, talking people off the ledge, right? Lorenzo, who's been here hanging out with us, has thanked me earlier for talking us off the ledge. So let me talk you off the ledge right now for just a moment. Here's the version of the future that could work out really well. I'm not saying it's what's going to happen, but there's a range of possible outcomes. And one of the things I try to do is present a realistic, plausible, positive outcome that could happen. Okay. The plausible, positive, optimistic future for this team is that they go into this offseason. Maybe they make a change at offensive coordinator, and Monty Austinfort attacks the offensive line the way he attacked the defense in the offseason. Right, he brought in players in free agency. He continued to draft. They had some guys they drafted that were developing. They took a few more chances in the draft on guys like Will Johnson, who had the injury. But they had enough foundational players that they took a few more shots in the draft with guys that were maybe a little more upside but risk reward. And I think we probably all would agree, made significant improvements in defense and brought the defense to a point where we feel good about its future. They still need to get, Walter Nolan in there, and they need to figure out a few things, but the pieces are there. The optimistic version of the future is they get another year and Monty fixes the offensive line and makes that a focal point and priority, and still maybe continues to add some pieces elsewhere. And next year, with a new offensive coordinator and a better offensive line, it works. Mm-hmm. And Kyler instead of just trying to keep a falling apart ship together and not being able to be the best version of himself, is freed up to do Kyler things. Like that's the version of the future that could make us all very happy, and it is a plausible outcome.
Hmm.
But for now, we're all commiserating and trying to help each other feel better in these very difficult times. Week 6 is coming up. We're not going to get into that. We've gone over the Colts. Boy, I think people saying we got the wrong coordinator from Philly. Listen, I don't think we had a chance at Steichen, but I loved him as a candidate when that time came around, right? But so we're not going to get into that, but I'm just going to have each of you, share with folks where to find you. Appreciate Corey you jumping on with us for the first time here. Kyle, always appreciate hanging out with you, my friend. So, Corey, let folks know where to find you before we get out of here.
Yeah, like I said earlier, you can follow me on Twitter over at Corey_Cards. You can also find me 1/3 of AZ Cardinalytics. Shout out my guys. We go usually every Wednesday on YouTube, so you can find our YouTube there, same as our Twitter. So you can find us there, and we're just talking ball just like we are here.
Kyler.
Thanks, Mikey. Well, you guys can always find me on Twitter. You can find my writing on Sports Illustrated, and you can find me on your local Fox station.
Your tweets on Fox 10. You all know where to find me. Find me here or on Twitter at JOKOMO13. We'll be here every Tuesday night, even if listen, it's not going well, but we will commiserate. Real quick, shout out. This is my brother, who's a Broncos fan. But he's in here. Fix it all. Coaches don't grow on trees, but that's what they need. Cough, Sean. Cough. Thanks for jumping in here. Yeah. Fix it all. Coaches don't grow on trees, but that's what they need. A coach who will fix it all.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you. But
we
here
were
we
close
are.
to Sean Payton. We were close.
We were close. Yeah. I mean, we had an interview with him, but I think he might have been leveraging us for negotiations. But yeah. All right. Well, we're going to get out of here. Thank you all for jumping in with us. Thank you all for hanging out with us in the chat. It's been a rough week, but we'll be here. Listen, it's a rough season already, but we're here for you and we're here for each other, right? Because that's all we got at this point. So we're going to get out of here. We're going to end this. Everyone, thanks for being here. Peace.